Looking for music that lifts your spirit and fills your heart? Experience the powerful sound of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. Now streaming on all your favorite music platforms. Find the Tabernacle Choir on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon Music, and Pandora. Let the music of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square inspire you today and every day. Whether you're at home, in the car, or on the go, enjoy the beauty of their world-renowned sound anytime. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, streaming now. It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
Nobody brings you better coverage of the teams you're passionate about than these guys.
Try some more.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are joined now by Matt Larkin. He's a managing editor and senior writer for the Daily Faceoff, covering the NHL. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. It must be an exciting one in your neck of the woods. Big game coming on Friday.
I would think the last 6 minutes of the game, of the second game, wound people up who were already pretty wound up. So now it's 1-1. What did you learn from two games? What do you know about this series that you didn't know when it started?
I mean, so far I've seen a lot of what I expected to see. I had that series really close. I had it going 7 games. I think Utah and Vegas are very similar teams in terms of what they do well. They're both great at driving the play. They're both great defensively. I have Utah winning the series in 7 games, and now you have the split. You've got home ice advantage because of that split. So it's sort of it makes me sound cocky, but it's kind of playing out exactly as I expected so far.
Good. We like to hear that, and then we're glad we have you on. With that in mind, that would obviously mean that Vegas would win in Salt Lake, and then Salt Lake or the Mammoth would have to go back to Vegas and win. And you see that, or I guess my question would be, why do you see that as doable?
I think, to me, when two teams are just so evenly matched, the goaltending is the tiebreaker. And yes, I know Carter Hart was really hot down the stretch for Vegas, but Karel Vejmelka, to me, has been so consistent all year long. He led the Western Conference in wins. He's handled really high volume, and I think I trust him more right now over the course of a long series. And Carter Hart, he's been on fire, but he hasn't played a lot of hockey, of course, in the last few years. So I think Vejmelka is more built to last over the course of a series.
Obviously, the Mammoth had a few young guys who are just, Gunther and Cooley especially, who are just really arriving as they move to town from Phoenix. And Cooley seems to be backing it up he did have the injury as a bit of a setback this year, but he seems to be backing it up. And I have to say, there's almost some kind of stamp of approval in my mind that the league's giving him when a veteran player looks at him and says, I'm going to bleep and kill you at the end of the game. Like, what did he do that deserves the death penalty? It struck me as veteran guy realizes this guy's a handful, and let's see if we can intimidate him. And obviously the answer to that is no. He scored the game-winning goal in Game 2, but do you see that as kind of the league giving Cooley the stamp of approval? He's arrived.
I think so. I think it kind of backfired on Dowd in the sense of it's a sign that Cooley's getting under his skin and that he's effective, he's dangerous, and I think it kind of is a microcosm of how the season's gone. And Logan Cooley, of course, he did miss time, but I think especially as a goal scorer, he really surprised this year. We knew he was dynamic as a playmaker, but adding the goal scoring to his repertoire, I think now we know his ceiling is just as high as everyone hoped it would be when he was taken in the top 3 at the first round of the draft. And of course, Dylan Gunther, to me, has been really effective in this series. He made a big play on to help to set up the winning goal and scored 40 goals this season. He's dynamic, he's big, he's fast. And of course, Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, the guys on that line have had great years. They've been so reliable over the past several seasons. But I think the difference this year is the step forward that Cooley and Gunther have taken.
We saw in Game 1, and I'm reading Vegas papers. I know some of the guys down there, they're talking about it, that it was clear that the Golden Knights came out and were trying to send a message with the physicality and all this, that we're going to basically rough you young guys up and whatnot. What do you think of that strategy in terms of being correct or maybe backfiring and firing up and getting the attention a little quicker than might be expected of the younger Mammoth?
I think it makes sense that Vegas is going to try to do that because they're a veteran team. They have multiple players who have won the Stanley Cup in 2023. They're going to try to assert their dominance, maybe intimidate a lineup that has a lot of guys who've never played a playoff game before. But I think what they take for granted in that case is that Utah has plenty of players who are able to mix it up, whether it's Mackenzie Weegar, even Ian Cole's really experienced. He won Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Lawson Krause is a big, strong guy. So is Jack McBain. And then, of course, Mikhail Sergachev can handle big minutes. He's a big guy. He's won Stanley Cups. Brandon Tanev's a really physical forward. So I think that Bill Armstrong has done a really good job building a team that isn't just skilled, but also capable of winning in multiple ways. And that includes if you want to have a really physical hockey game.
It also seems to me like a younger team with no playoff experience gets it as the series goes along, and you can get tougher and realize, hey, the checking's a big part of this. We got to be physical in the playoffs in a way that maybe the regular season doesn't demand it. But on the other hand, it looks like the faster, more athletic team is a Mammoth, and I don't know how Vegas is supposed to get faster, more athletic. And I get why they're lining guys, putting three guys on the blue line there because they can't give the Mammoth space. It seems like when the Mammoth get space and they start skating, they're just blowing by Vegas guys. Is that something we're going to see more of as the series goes along?
I think so, and I think it is one of the reasons why I picked Utah to win the series. I think, Vegas is still a good offensive team, and they were much better at once John Tortorella took over in terms of the underlying play-driving numbers. They actually were tops in the league. But Utah, the fact you can spread your lines, you can have Keller and Schmaltz on one line, you can have Gunther and Cooley on another, and even the third line, you can have J.C. Peterka, who's dangerous as well. I just think there are so many dynamic groups that bring a lot of speed and skill, and it could be overwhelming for Vegas. It's still going to be close because Vegas does have excellent defensive forwards in terms of just the matchups, whether it's Mark Stone, Mitch Marner. Those are two of the best defensive forwards of this entire generation. So I don't think it's going to be dominant one way or another. Sense the way things have played out so far because Utah does have a lot of skill, a lot of speed, and they can overwhelm opponents.
Since you're picking the Mammoth to win in advance, who did you pick that they would be playing?
So if we look at that side of the bracket, that specific part of the bracket, which means that Utah will be playing the winner of Edmonton and Anaheim. And as I filled out my bracket, I think Utah beats either of those teams if it advances to round two. So I actually have Utah going to the conference final in the West this year.
Oh, that's good for sports radio. Thank you.
We'll take it.
All right.
Now, when you throw that out there, do you hear any reaction from some of the people you work with, people who read you? What is the feedback? You're crazy. That's a bold pick. I see where you're going with that. These are all coin tosses. That pick is as good as any other one. What was the reaction?
I think it depends on who you talk to. So if you're more of a modern thinker and you like to study the analytics a little bit more, I think a lot of people in that camp have really liked Utah this season and labeled them as one of the sleepers to make a deep run. On the other side, if you're more interested in the intangibles and just the idea that the style of hockey is different in the playoffs and a lot of players are going to struggle to gain the new experience, then maybe I'm overreaching, expecting a relatively green team to go that far. So I think it depends on the camps that you're involved in, and I could see it both ways for sure.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Now at McDonald's, a McDouble is $2.50, so you can get your gym gains on, or just get lunch for only $2.50. Get more value on the under $3 menu.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
A lot of our listeners are new to this, right? And everybody loves a story, and so the Jazz are down their rebuild here that they've been going through. Looks like it's over, but nevertheless, they haven't had postseason in a number of years. And so the fresh story is the Mammoth, and they've been able to capture the attention. And now with their playoff, that we have some form of playoffs, it's in terms of in the spring, it's hockey now. And so there might be learning as we go. And we know in the NBA, they put a big premium on the home court, and Utah was tough to play. What level of emphasis or premium do you put on home ice advantage?
I think it depends on sport. So it's undoubtedly most prominent in basketball, and that's just something we all know historically, that it's most skewed in terms of home records being dominant. It still is an advantage in hockey for sure, and I think it's more pronounced in the playoffs when the games get more aggressive and physical and players feel that adrenaline. I think you really saw it. So I was in Buffalo for games 1 and 2. The Sabres make that comeback. You could feel them feeding off the momentum of the crowd as they fought back over that wild final 8 minutes in game 1. They were clearly being fed by the energy of the crowd. So I think it is an advantage, and I expect it's going to be significant for Utah. And I'm going to date myself here, but I still have memories of 97-98 NBA Finals watching Phil Jackson put the earplugs in, playing the Jazz, right, at Delta Center. That was a really rabid, loud building. I know those same fans technically have aged 30 years, almost 30 years since then, but I suspect they've passed down the same habits to their kids, and I'm expecting a really loud, raucous building for Game 1 and 2. Or Game 3 and 4, I should say.
Right, I got you.
One key to this series so far, and it's been a real problem for the Mammoth, is they're 0 for 5 on the power play. At the same time, Vegas is 2 for 5. Vegas with the empty netter and the 2 power plays, you can say a lot is resting on this. Do you think those numbers hold, or do they have to even out a little bit just by the nature of the sport? And if they do even out, is that a major problem for Vegas?
I do think it'll be a problem for Vegas, but I do think they also match what we saw in the regular season, right? Vegas had the number 6 power play in the NHL, 24.6%. Utah was down at 18th, 20%. So that was, on paper, one of the advantages that Vegas held over Utah going into the series. It's not necessarily going to be that skewed all series long, but I think it makes sense that so far we're seeing Vegas more effective on the power play. It's something that Utah, despite all their talent, they haven't quite figured that out yet. It's something they're going to have to work on, I think, over the next couple of years.
Since you've already said you've got the Mammoth winning a couple of series, how much of that is that you have a belief in the team, the organization, versus maybe it's just a bracket situation that they can take advantage of?
I think it's both. I think that Utah is a well-constructed team, and I think the proof of that is just the fact that I have them beating Vegas, because Vegas is a good team too. But I think also the other part of the bracket, Edmonton and Anaheim, are more flawed. So if Utah does get by Vegas, I actually think it's going to be an easier series in round 2. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's a cop-out answer, but I truly believe both. And then if you look more in the long term, I just think Utah is a franchise set up very well to contend for years to come, because you have more prospects on the way that are very high-end prospects, whether it's TJ Ginla, Caleb Denoyer. And not only does that mean there's help coming, it means that there's more flexibility to trade some prospects too if you have an extreme surplus. So I think this is just the beginning for what's going to be a long era of Utah being a contender.
That sounds very good in the long run. I think in the short run, people hearing this are like, oh, I get why they can beat Vegas and I get why they can beat Anaheim, but they had real problems with Edmonton. You think those could be overcome if it comes to that? I mean, there's no guarantee either team will be there, let alone both of them. But let's just, for sake of argument, say it's both there. They really struggled with Edmonton in the regular season.
They did, but if I remember correctly, they struggled with a healthier version of Edmonton. Mm-hmm. So right now we have Leon Draisaitl. He's back, but he's still not 100%. And then you have Connor McDavid, who tweaked his ankle last night. We think it's his ankle. He was not himself for the rest of that game, and we don't know whether that's going to hurt him for the rest of the playoffs, whether he's going to be able to shake it off. And that's scary for a team that's already notoriously top-heavy. They need both those players to be dominant. And I also think, just with all due respect to Connor Ingram, if you put those two teams up against each other, if it was a hypothetical series of Utah and Edmonton, again, the advantage in net goes to Utah with Vejmelka. So I think this is, compared to the Oilers teams that made the Stanley Cup final the last couple of seasons, this version of the Oilers is much more flawed.
Matt, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on and talking a little playoff hockey with us.
Pleasure, guys, and I will be watching intently on Friday. It should be electric.
He's Matt Larkin. He's a managing editor and senior writer for the Daily Faceoff. And he got to be in that building in Buffalo for that great comeback. That had to be electric. We like stories. We like those moments, PK, and that was something. So
a lot of electricity then.
Good for him, right? All right, DJ and PK, we got to take a break. We will have more in the 9 o'clock hour. Cole Bagley, who covers the Mammoth for KSL, is going to join us coming up at 9:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports.